about a manual Tacoma? Because I'm a man.
In all seriousness, I love the manual transmission in the Toyota Tacoma. Not joking about it, this is honestly one of my favorite vehicles I have ever owned. I've been getting a lot of questions lately about why I got a manual in 2022, since it is an outdated model. The automatics are just selling better. Honestly, all the questions are very well needed. Automatics are selling better, they're more fuel efficient, they're more capable if you look at it in performance vehicles. So why did I opt for a manual in 2022? It's no surprise to anybody who's into vehicles that the manual transmission is being pushed out. It's not as popular. Car companies are not producing this. And is that because objectively the manual transmission is not as good? I'll go ahead and I'll say that the manual transmission is not as good as an automatic. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have one. But before I hop into some of these main reasons of why I got a Toyota Tacoma in 2022, even though it doesn't really make sense, I want to go ahead and say thanks. I finally hit 100 subs. Big milestone for me. I never thought that I would have 100 people interested in listening to what I have to say about a truck. So pretty awesome. I'm going to go ahead and try to get a camera now and try to put some more money into the channel since you guys are apparently liking the content. So you go ahead and hit that like button, hit subscribe, bell button, do whatever you need to do to let me know that you like these videos. So other than the fact that I've had all these people ask me why I got a manual transmission in 2022, I also wanted to make this video because I'm very passionate about the manual transmission. I'm passionate about all vehicles. I'm only 23, I've owned 11 vehicles. Every single one of those vehicles have had a manual transmission. I've never owned an automatic because, simply put it, I won't buy something I won't enjoy to drive. I think in today's society, people are seeing vehicles as just a means of transportation, and I don't look at cars or trucks or anything like that. They're always, how much fun can I get out of this? It could be the slowest vehicle ever. It could be slow, it could just be not fun. And if it has a manual transmission, you're going to have a little bit of fun with it. Even if you're just driving back and forth to work, it may seem like a headache to some people. And honestly, that's just if you are an enthusiast about vehicles and cars, trucks, or if you're just one of those people that see things as a transportation. Which is, either way, is not bad, but personally for me, a vehicle, a car, a truck, it's way more than just a means to an end. It's way more than going to point A to point B. To me, a truck or a car, anything you like, it's more of an extension of yourself. I mean, taking a look at my first truck here, it was by no means the fastest thing on the street. This thing was about, I don't know, 25 years old when I got it for my first vehicle. It had about 97 horsepower to the wheels, and it was not fast at all, but I had so much fun with this vehicle. If you ask me, I think every kid should start out with a 1990s Toyota pickup with a manual for their first vehicle. I mean, other than not having airbags, they're pretty amazing trucks. A few handful of vehicles, the cars included, not just trucks at this point, that you can get in a manual transmission. For trucks, I don't even know if I would consider the Bronco a truck, so I'm just going to leave that out. But you can get the Jeep Gladiator and the Tacoma with a manual. And with me always having them, I'm obviously going to get the manual, and I don't regret it at all. If I ever buy a vehicle, especially if it's going to be a new one, I want to show these car companies that people are still interested in the manual and people are still buying them. And maybe we can hold on to this just a little bit longer, because I truly believe the age of the manuals is very rapidly hitting its last leg. If you take a look at what electric vehicles are coming on the market right now, obviously you can't get an electric vehicle with a manual. On top of that, with the push for better gas economy, you're just going to slowly start seeing these manuals completely disappear, more so than we have already. To me, the manual transmission represents a different time when everybody saw a vehicle differently. Everyone saw a vehicle as an extension of themselves. That's why you saw the cool hot rods and the Camaros and the Fords. They're all big and bright colors, loud engines, manual transmissions. They were all just extensions of yourself, and you really wanted to show people, hey, this is me, and this is, when you're driving around town, you want people to know it's you. I mean, maybe not nowadays, but back then when this was a different time, you would be like, oh look, there's Jimmy with his red Ford. It's just a different time period. It's a shame that it's coming to an end, and I would love if everybody could come together and try to get that sense of self again using their cars and trucks. The manual transmission represents a different time before all these vehicles were just square, bubble wrapped squares on wheels. The manual transmission represents a time where it was raw and it was just passionate, and these car companies didn't care about safety as much. Now, I know that sounds bad, but hear me out. If a car company's main focus is fuel economy, safety, the cars are going to be bigger, they're going to be slower, and they're just going to be less connected to the driver. Because, in all honesty, drivers are the reason why accidents happen. In my opinion, the manual transmission in that time period, when there was a really booming thing to have a manual transmission and everybody wanted one, I think vehicles then were shown as a true sense of freedom. I mean, you got your first car at 16, you honestly could go anywhere you wanted, and that was a crazy thing at the time, just being able to go anywhere and have that freedom. So I think a vehicle represents that. And nowadays it's just not that. It's just, hey, I got my first car at 16, now I can go down to enterprise that you work at and put my 8 hours in and then come home and just let the car sit there and never touch it again. And that's very depressing to me, and I wish we could all come together as a community and really bring that passion back, even to the normal people that aren't really enthusiasts. I will always, it doesn't matter, it could be 2024, and if I need a new truck, and I can pick any truck in the market, and if only one of them has a manual, I'm more than likely going to pick that one. I didn't just pick the Toyota because I like Toyota. I picked it because they offered the manual. If I take a look at this truck and I'm driving this truck, and I don't even drive that far anymore because honestly I work from home, but I use this truck mainly for when I need to go for a long distance drive, and I just drive back and forth to the gym. Honestly, in that just short distance that I drive my truck, I love it. Going through the gears, listen to that classic. If you've never heard the Toyota shift, let me tell you what, I'm going to post this video right now. Listen to this thing shift. Now you don't hear it on the truck's running, obviously, but when you stop the truck and you put it in gear, you can hear that classic clunk of the linkage in the transmission, and I honestly love that sound. It doesn't make it feel like I'm driving in a 2021 safety bubble of a vehicle. It makes me feel like I'm truly driving something that's dated. And I know some people might not like that. Some people want the BMW M5 of trucks, and I get that. And I honestly, I've owned BMWs and they're nice, and I've been in expensive BMWs and expensive cars before. But that feeling, you get so pushed back away from the vehicle that it's almost driving itself. And I think that takes a lot of the joy out of it. Not to mention, I can have so much more control over the truck. I remember a while ago, I was driving my mom's Subaru Forester, and it had the automatic in it. And when I was driving up the hill, it downshifted in a snowstorm, and the rear end kicked out from under me. Now, you can get around this by working on your pedal, your gas pedal, and how much pressure you give it. But sometimes the transmission just will downshift when you don't want it to. I think that can cause a lot of accidents if you're not prepared for it. With the manual transmission, I choose when I want it to downshift or upshift, and that helps me not get the tires to spin out when I don't want them to spin. But honestly, it comes down to personal preference. If you like automatics, that's fine. If you like manuals, that's fine. But I think a true enthusiast should at least drive a manual transmission at least once. So if you're into vehicles, if you're in the trucks, if you're in the cars, bikes, whatever, and if you've never driven a manual transmission, go ahead, reach out to one of your family members or a friend, and I'm sure they will let you drive theirs, as long as you don't beat the clutch up too bad. But they'll let you drive theirs, and honestly, I think that feeling that you will get from driving a manual transmission will give you a whole new love for trucks and cars that you never had. I think that's a really big deal, and I think everybody should experience that at least once in their life, at least while we still can. Now, I'm sure you want me to sit here and bash on the automatic owners of the Toyota Tacoma because they claim that it gear hunt and has issues, but I don't think that's too big of a deal in 2022 and 2021 with those models. I think they got the transmission issues pretty much ironed out. I know they're a little bit slower, but honestly, performance-wise, they're not that much different. It honestly comes down to personal preference. And to be honest, I believe, now you don't quote me on this, but I've seen in my studies when I was looking at trucks, and I've looked at a ton of trucks, the manual transmission trucks seem to hold slightly higher value in the community versus automatics. I think when people are looking for manuals, and I know there's a small percentage of people looking for manuals, but when they're looking for one, they're willing to pay that extra because that's what they want and that's what they're passionate about. And I don't blame them for that. Like I said, I love my truck, and I would never go back and change it to have an automatic. I know a lot of people complain about city driving. Honestly, I've driven mine in big cities before. Not even hard. But that may be because I've driven manual transmissions my entire life. But it's not that hard. It's got hill assist. The clutch is super easy. I don't see why anybody would complain about driving this truck in a city unless you're just not used to driving a manual and you've driven an automatic on and off, which you've gotten used to having an automatic transmission. But I had my Subaru, my old Subaru, which was almost 400 horsepower, and it was like the transmission was solid mounted, the engine was basically solid mounted, all this vibration. The clutch was a segmented ceramic clutch, so it was very sticky. It was it was either gripping or you're out. So driving that in a city was very difficult. It was heavy, and I drove that back and forth to college, and I had no issues in that. And that may be why I'm okay with driving manuals in almost any scenario. But I do really recommend you putting some thought into your next truck and seeing if you might want the manual, because it's okay to have something different. You don't have to take the easiest route. Maybe you want a manual for that raw feeling. So if you're a fan of the manual, if you like the automatic, drop a like, hit the sub button. Thanks for watching.